Before we dive into this powerful story of redemption and second chances, I want you to imagine losing everything: your home, your reputation, your will to live, and finding salvation in the most unexpected place. If this story moves you, please hit that like button and subscribe to follow more incredible journeys of the human heart. Let's begin where four roads lead to nothing and everything changes. Dying mother at Crossroads, saved by mysterious rancher. His dark secret changes. Everything Ruth Winslow's knees hit the frozen ground at the crossroads where four roads led to nothing. The baby in her arms had stopped crying 3 hours ago, too weak, too cold, or worse. Her hands were blue-black, her lips cracked and bleeding. She'd walked 40 miles in 2 days with no food, no shelter, no mercy from any town that learned her name. A single rider appeared through the snow. Ruth looked up, her vision blurring, crystallizing, then blurring again. She didn't beg, she didn't plead. She just whispered the truth that hung between life and death. "I'm dying." The man on the horse stared down at her, his gray eyes unreadable as winter stone. His voice came flat, final, yet somehow holding the weight of understanding. Not today. The world spun. Ruth's body had made its choice one moment. She was conscious of the cold, the next she was floating, disconnected from the pain that had been her only companion for weeks. Through the haze, she felt strong arms lifting her, heard a deep voice speaking words she couldn't understand. The baby hope was taken from her arms, and for the first time in 6 months, Ruth let go. When consciousness returned, it came with warmth. Real warmth, not the false heat that preceded freezing to death. Ruth's eyes fluttered open to find herself in a cabin, rough-hewn logs, a stone fireplace crackling with fresh wood, and the smell of coffee brewing. Hope lay beside her on a thick bearskin rug, breathing steadily. Color returned to her tiny cheeks. "You've been out for 6 hours." The voice came from the shadows near the window. The man who'd saved her stepped forward into the firelight. He was younger than she'd first thought, maybe 35, but grief had carved permanent lines around his eyes. "The baby's fine. Fed her some goat's milk I had stored. She's a fighter." Ruth tried to sit up, but her body wouldn't cooperate. Every muscle screamed in protest. "Who are you?" "Grant McCoy. This is my land, my cabin." He moved to the fire, added another log with practiced efficiency. "And you're Ruth Winslow, widow of Thomas Winslow, late of Benton, mother to Hope, currently wanted in 4 towns for bringing curse and calamity wherever you go." Ruth's blood turned to ice despite the warmth. "How do you—" "Word travels fast in winter. Fewer distractions." Grant turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "Silver Creek, Benton, Miller's Pass, and Grayson. 4 towns in 6 months. Each one drove you out after some misfortune they blamed on you." Ruth pulled Hope closer, her arms shaking. "If you know that, why did you save us?" Grant was quiet for a long moment, staring into the fire. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of old pain. "Because I know what it's like to be blamed for a death that wasn't your fault." He moved to a shelf, pulled down a photograph in a tarnished silver frame. A woman smiled out from it, beautiful, delicate, with eyes that sparkled even in sepia tones. "My wife Anna died 2 years ago. Childbirth." His jaw tightened. "The town blamed me. Said I worked her too hard and ignored the signs, chose my lumber empire over her needs. They weren't entirely wrong." Ruth studied his face, saw the self-hatred etched there. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. God takes what he wants, leaves us with the aftermath." Grant set the photo down carefully like it might shatter. "Here's my offer, Mrs. Winslow. You need shelter protection work. I need someone to keep this place from falling apart while I'm at the mill. $20 a month, room and board, no questions asked about your past." "That's generous. Too generous." Ruth's voice was suspicious. "What else do you want?" Grant's laugh was bitter. "I want to stop seeing Anna's ghost in every corner. I want to eat a meal that doesn't taste like ash. I want to remember what it feels like to have another living soul in this tomb I call home." He met her eyes directly. "I want to stop being dead while I'm still breathing. Think you can help with that?" Before Ruth could answer, a knock echoed through the cabin. 3 sharp raps, then 2 slow ones, a pattern, a code. Grant's entire demeanor changed. He grabbed a rifle from above the door, checked it was loaded. "Stay quiet," he whispered, "no matter what you hear." He opened the door a crack. Ruth couldn't see who stood outside, but she heard a young male voice, nervous and quick. "Boss, we got trouble?" Warren Kent's in town stirring folks up about the widow you brought in. Says you're harboring a curse dishonoring Miss Anna's memory. Let him talk, Jonas. Man's been trying to buy my timber rights for 3 years. This is just another angle. It's different this time, boss. He's got Reverend Silas backing him. They're talking about riding out here making sure the woman moves on. Grant's voice went cold. Anyone sets foot on my land uninvited, they'll meet the business end of this Winchester. Spread the word. Yes, sir, but boss, Jonas's voice dropped. Is it true what they say about her, that she's cursed? The only curse around here is narrow minds and wagging tongues. Now get back to the bunkhouse. Tell Peter to keep watch tonight. The door closed. Grant stood still for a moment, then turned back to Ruth. His face was grim. Seems your reputation preceded you more than I thought. Ruth pulled herself upright despite the pain. I'll leave. Tonight, I won't bring trouble to your door. You'll do no such thing. Grant's voice was firm. You can barely stand, and that baby needs stability, not another midnight flight into the cold. But they'll come. Let them come. Grant set the rifle within easy reach. I've buried everything that mattered to me in this life. My reputation can join my wife in the ground for all I care. Ruth studied him, this strange, broken man who'd pulled her from death's edge. There was something he wasn't saying, something deeper than grief in his eyes. But she was too exhausted to puzzle it out. Why did Anna really die? The question escaped before she could stop it. Grant went rigid. For a moment, she thought he might throw her out after all. Then his shoulders sagged. I wasn't there. Was at the mill negotiating a contract worth thousands. She went into labor early alone except for an incompetent midwife. By the time they sent for me, she'd lost too much blood. He stared at his hands. Her last words were, I forgive you. I've spent 2 years trying to figure out what she meant. The fire crackled. Hope made small sounds in her sleep. Ruth felt the weight of shared grief, shared guilt. She knew about last words about forgiveness that felt more like condemnation. Thomas's last words to me were, you never understood anything. Ruth's voice was barely a whisper. We'd fought that morning about him working extra shifts. I begged him to stay home, told him I was scared, lonely. He said I was selfish. She closed her eyes. 3 hours later, the mine collapsed. And the town blamed you. Said I distracted him, made him careless. Said any man who had to deal with a needy wife would lose focus. Ruth's laugh was hollow. Maybe they were right. They weren't. Grant moved closer, sat in the chair across from her. I've worked dangerous jobs my whole life. When a man's time comes, it comes. Has nothing to do with whether his wife asked him to stay home. They sat in comfortable silence, two souls shipwrecked by loss, finding unexpected harbor in shared understanding. Finally, Grant stood. There's a room in the back. Was Anna's sewing room. It's yours now if you want it. Has a proper bed, a cradle I built. But never, he stopped, unable to finish. Thank you, Ruth said simply. That night, lying in a bed that still smelled faintly of lavender and old grief, Ruth allowed herself a dangerous thought. Maybe, just maybe, she'd found somewhere she could stop running. But outside, through the frosted window, she saw a figure on horseback watching the cabin from the tree line. The rider sat motionless for an hour before turning and disappearing into the darkness. The second morning brought revelations. Ruth woke to find Grant already up, sitting at the kitchen table with papers spread before him. But what stopped her cold was seeing him reading fluently, quickly, making notes in the margins with educated handwriting. You can read, she said, unable to hide her surprise. Grant looked up, and for a moment something flickered in his eyes. Guilt. Of course I can read. Built a business empire, didn't I? But yesterday when I mentioned teaching you, he set down his pen. I never said I couldn't read, Mrs. Winslow. Ruth felt heat rise in her cheeks. He'd let her assume, let her offer to teach him like some charity case. Why would you saw? Because you needed to feel useful, needed to offer something in return for shelter. Grant's voice was matter of fact. Pride's about all you have left. I wasn't going to take that too. Ruth didn't know whether to be grateful or insulted. She chose neither, instead moving to start breakfast. As she worked, she noticed things she'd missed the night before. Books, dozens of them, but dust-covered. A violin in the corner, its strings snapped. Half-finished carved figures on the mantel. Birds, horses, a baby's rattle that looked like it had been thrown against the wall. You carve? She asked, trying for neutral conversation. Used to. Haven't touched wood since Anna died. Grant gathered his papers. I'll be at the north pasture checking cattle. There's a loaded derringer in the flour bin just in case. You expect trouble? I expect Warren Kent to test boundaries. Man's been circling like a vulture since Anna's funeral. Grant pulled on his coat. Jonas will be around. He's young, eager to please. Don't trust him completely. Why not? Grant paused at the door. Boy's got romantic notions. Sees himself as some kind of hero. Heroes do stupid things for pretty women. Before Ruth could respond, he was gone. The morning passed quietly. Ruth cleaned, organized, tried to make the tomb-like cabin feel less like a memorial. Hope crawled around, exploring, babbling at dust motes in the sunbeams. It was almost peaceful. Then Jonas arrived. He was younger than his voice had suggested, maybe 22, with sandy hair and earnest brown eyes. He knocked politely, waited for Ruth to answer. "Ma'am, boss wanted me to check on you, bring supplies from the root cellar." Ruth let him in, watched as he carried up preserves, potatoes, dried meat. He was respectful, careful, but she caught him stealing glances when he thought she wasn't looking. "How long have you worked for Mr. McCoy?" she asked, trying to ease the awkwardness. "3 years, ma'am, since before—" He trailed off. "Since before Anna died." Jonas nodded, setting down a sack of flour. "She was real kind. Used to bring us cookies, ask about our families. Boss hasn't been the same since. Grief changes people." "Yes, ma'am." Jonas hesitated, then spoke in a rush. "Ma'am, can I ask you something? Is it true what they say about you being cursed?" Ruth's spine stiffened. "What do you think?" "I think you're just a woman who's had terrible luck. And I think—" He stopped, face reddening. "You think what—" "I think boss is different since you arrived. Heard him humming this morning. Haven't heard that in 2 years." Ruth didn't know what to say to that. Jonas finished unloading supplies, but at the door he turned back. "Ma'am, if you need anything, anything at all, I'm in the bunkhouse. Day or night." There was something in his tone and intensity that made Ruth uncomfortable. "Thank you, Jonas, that's kind." After he left, Ruth found herself checking the derringer in the flour bin. Not because of Jonas exactly, but because of the way he'd looked at her. Like she was salvation and damnation all at once. That afternoon, while Hope napped, Ruth explored Anna's sewing room more thoroughly. In a trunk at the foot of the bed, she found letters, dozens of them tied with ribbon. Her conscience warred with curiosity. Curiosity won. The letters were from Anna to Grant, apparently never sent. They painted a picture of a desperately lonely woman begging for attention, for time, for love. But one letter, dated a week before her death, made Ruth's blood run cold. "My dearest Grant, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Not by God's will, but by my own hand. I cannot bear another day in this beautiful prison you have built for me. The baby isn't yours, it's Silas's. I'm sorry. I was so alone, and he was here when you weren't at. I know you'll blame yourself, but don't. You loved me the only way you knew how, from a distance, with gifts and provisions instead of presents. Forgive me as I forgive you, Anna." Ruth's hands shook. Anna had planned to kill herself. The baby wasn't Grant's. Reverend Silas, the moral pillar of the community, had fathered a child with a married woman. The front door opened. Ruth quickly hid the letter, but Grant saw her guilt immediately. "You found them." It wasn't a question. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have—" "I knew you would. Curious women always find the truth eventually." Grant sat heavily in a chair. "Now you know. Anna killed herself, made it look like death in childbirth. The midwife helped cover it up. She was Anna's cousin." Ruth couldn't speak. The weight of the secret, the pain in Grant's voice, filled the room like smoke. "Silas doesn't know I know," Grant continued. "He plays the righteous minister, condemning others for sin while hiding his own. And I let him because, what's the point? Anna's gone. The baby's gone. The truth would only hurt more people. But he's tormenting you, blaming you, affecting. Let him. It's better than the real truth getting out." Grant looked at her. Anna was delicate, fragile. The town loved her, saw her as this perfect angel. If they knew she'd taken her own life, been unfaithful, it would destroy the one good thing they remember. Ruth understood then. Grant was protecting Anna's memory even as it crushed him. "That's why you really saved me. You know what it's like to carry blame for something that wasn't your fault." We're quite a pair, aren't we? Grant's smile was bitter. The cursed widow and the man whose wife chose death over life with him. That night dinner was quiet. Ruth had made a stew with the supplies Jonas brought, and they ate in companionable silence. Hope sat in the high chair Grant had dragged from storage, smearing mashed potatoes across her face with delight. "She's beautiful," Grant said, suddenly watching Hope. "Reminds me of what Anna and I dreamed about. A house full of children, laughter, chaos. You could still have that. You're young, wealthy." "No," Grant's voice was firm. "I had my chance at happiness. Failed spectacularly. Some people aren't meant for joy, Mrs. Winslow. We're meant to endure." Ruth wanted to argue but recognized the futility. She'd felt the same way for months after Thomas died. Instead, she changed the subject. "Tell me about Warren Kent." Grant's expression darkened. "Banker, businessman, bastard. Wanted Anna before I married her, never forgave me for winning her hand. Now he wants my lumber contracts, my land, everything I've built. And he's using my presence against you. Trying to. Man doesn't understand that I don't care about reputation anymore." Grant walked to the window. "But he's dangerous, has influence, money connections. If he decides you're a real threat to his plans, he'll do what kill me. I'm already dead to every town in 50 miles. Grant turned to look at her. "There are worse things than death, Mrs. Winslow. Warren Kent knows most of them." As if summoned by his name, hoofbeats echoed outside. Grant grabbed the rifle, peered through the window. 3 riders, Kent, Silas, and... That's interesting. Sheriff Briggs. The law. Such as it is, Tom Briggs is a good man, but he bends with the wind. And right now, the wind's blowing against you." The knock came authoritative, demanding. Grant opened the door, but didn't invite them in. "Gentlemen, bit late for social calls?" Warren Kent's voice was smooth as oil. "This isn't social, McCoy. It's civic duty. We've come about the woman." "What woman would that be?" "Don't play games," Reverend Silas pushed forward. Ruth could see him now, tall, austere, with eyes that burned with fervor or guilt. "The widow Winslow. We know she's here. Mrs. Winslow is my employee, housekeeper, all proper and above board." Sheriff Briggs cleared his throat. "Grant, nobody's saying you've done anything improper, but the woman has a history. Every town she's stayed in has suffered misfortune. Correlation isn't causation, Tom. You're smarter than that." Warren Kent smiled, the expression not reaching his eyes. "Perhaps, but perception matters. Your workers are already talking, wondering if the curse might spread to the mill, the lumber camps. Bad for business." "My business is my concern." "Is it?" Kent's voice sharpened. "Because I have buyers lined up who'd pay handsomely for your contracts. Men who aren't burdened by distractions." Grant stepped onto the porch, rifle prominent. "Warren, you have begun, Brian, to buy me out for 3 years. Using a desperate woman as leverage is low even for you." Silas interjected, his voice rising with righteous anger. "This isn't about business, it's about morality. That woman is living under your roof unmarried with her bastard child." "Careful, Reverend." Grant's voice went deadly quiet. "You want to talk about morality, about bastards? Because I have some interesting letters that might shift that conversation." Silas went white. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Warren Kent laughed. "Threatening a man of God now, McCoy? You really have lost your way." He leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen. The woman leaves by week's end, or we'll make sure every contract you have dries up. Every worker will quit. Every supplier will refuse your business." "You don't have that power." "Don't I?" Warren's smile was predatory. "Tom, tell him about the new ordinance." Sheriff Briggs looked uncomfortable. "Town council passed a law. Any business that harbors individuals of questionable moral character can be fined, repeatedly, until compliance." "You wrote a law specifically to target me." "We wrote a law to protect our community," Silas said, recovering some composure. "Mr. McCoy, you were once a pillar of this town. Your dear Anna." "Don't." Grant's knuckles were white on the rifle. "Don't you dare speak her name." The tension stretched taut. Ruth watched from inside, hope clutched to her chest. She could end this, walk outside, announce she was leaving, dissolve the situation. But something held her back. Maybe it was the way Grant stood straight, defiant, defending her when no one else ever had. Warren Kent broke the silence. 3 days, McCoy. After that, we won't be asking. The riders left, but their threat lingered like smoke. Grant came inside, set down the rifle with shaking hands. I'll go, Ruth said immediately. Tomorrow. This isn't your fight. Like hell it isn't. Grant's eyes blazed. Warren Kent doesn't get to dictate who lives under my roof. But your business can burn for all I care? He moved to the fireplace, stared into the flames. You know what I realized when they were talking? They're not really after you. You're just the excuse. Kent's been planning this for years, waiting for me to show weakness. Your kindness isn't weakness. Grant looked at her, and for the first time since they'd met, he smiled, really smiled. Anna used to say that, never believed her. He paused. Stay, Ruth, please. Not because I'm lonely or because you need shelter. Stay because for the first time in 2 years, I want to fight for something. Ruth felt something shift in her chest, a loosening of the armor she'd built around her heart. All right, but we do this smart. Kent's not the only one who can play strategic games. That night they made plans. Ruth would write letters to contacts Thomas had had in other territories, men who'd competed with Kent's bank. Grant would leverage his lumber contracts, remind his workers who paid their salaries. And quietly, carefully, they'd investigate Reverend Silas. He's the weak link, Ruth said, remembering the letter. He has the most to lose if the truth comes out. It would destroy him and possibly push him to do something desperate. Then we'd be ready for desperate. As they talked, strategized, something new grew between them. Not romance, not yet, but partnership. Two broken people deciding to stand together rather than fall alone. But outside, Jonas stood in the shadows watching the cabin. He'd heard everything. Warren Kent had made him an offer earlier that day, Moneyland a chance to be more than a ranch hand. All he had to do was report on the widow, find something incriminating. Jonas touched the money in his pocket, then looked at the warm light spilling from the cabin windows. Inside, he could see Ruth moving about, tending to Hope, her face soft with maternal love. She was beautiful, yes, but more than that, she was kind. She'd smiled at him, talked to him like he mattered. He made his decision. Tomorrow he'd tell Warren Kent exactly what the man wanted to hear. But it wouldn't be the truth. Because Jonas Miller, all 22 years of him, had fallen in love with Ruth Winslow. And heroes, even foolish young ones, protected the women they loved. Even if those women loved someone else. Even if that someone was Grant McCoy, who Jonas could see looking at Ruth with eyes that held more than employer's concern. The boy turned and walked back to the bunkhouse, unaware that his footprints in the snow would tell their own story come morning. Unaware that Ruth had seen him from the window. Unaware that the game they were all playing had just gotten infinitely more dangerous. 3 days passed in strange tranquility. Grant worked his land by day, returning each evening with reports of normalcy, no visitors, no threats, just the usual rhythm of ranch life. Ruth kept house-cooked meals that filled the cabin with warmth and taught Hope to say mama, and to Grant's surprise, papa. She doesn't know what she's saying. Ruth apologized, embarrassed, when Hope reached for Grant, babbling, Papa, Papa. It's fine, Grant said, but his voice was rough. He lifted Hope, who immediately grabbed his nose. Hello, little one. You're going to be trouble, aren't you? Ruth watched them, this broken man and her daughter, and felt something dangerous bloom in her chest. Not love, she told herself. Gratitude. Safety. Nothing more. But when Grant taught Hope to stack wooden blocks that evening, patient with her clumsy baby fingers, Ruth knew she was lying to herself. The morning of the 4th day, Jonas appeared at the door, his face flushed with cold and something else, excitement, fear. Ma'am, I need to speak with you, alone. Ruth glanced toward the barn where Grant was working. I don't think, please. It's about Warren Kent, about what he's planning. Against her better judgment, Ruth stepped onto the porch, leaving the door cracked so she could hear Hope. Jonas stood too close, his voice urgent. Kent's not waiting. Tonight he's bringing men. They plan to take you by force, claim you're a danger to the community. Ruth's blood chilled. How do you know this? Because, Jonas swallowed hard, because he tried to recruit me. Offered me money to spy on you, find evidence of wrongdoing. And I've been feeding him lies. Telling him you practice strange rituals, that you've bewitched Mr. McCoy. Jonas stepped closer. But he's tired of waiting. Tonight they come. Ruth studied the young man's face. Why are you helping me? because you don't deserve what they're planning, because you're, he reached for her hand, you're special, Mrs. Winslow. You deserve better than this place, these people. Come with me. I've saved money. We could go to California, start fresh. Ruth pulled her hand back, stunned. Jonas, I'm flattered, but you don't love him. It wasn't a question. McCoy, you're just using each other for shelter and comfort. But I could give you real happiness, real love. Jonas, you're a boy. I'm a man. His voice cracked with emotion. I know what I want, and I want you. The cabin door opened. Grant stood there, rifle in hand, his expression carved from stone. Miller, step away from Mrs. Winslow. Jonas turned his young face defiant. She deserves to know she has options. Her options don't include you. Grant's voice was deadly quiet. Pack your things. You're done here. You can't fire me for telling the truth. I'm firing you for betrayal. You took Kent's money, admitted as much. Grant stepped onto the porch. You have 10 minutes to clear out. Jonas looked between them, his face twisting with anger and hurt. You think you're saving mine, you're killing her. Everyone knows what happens to women who stay with you. Grant moved so fast, Ruth barely saw it. He grabbed Jonas by the shirt, lifted him clean off his feet. Say another word about Anna, and you'll be picking up your teeth. Grant, no. Ruth grabbed his arm. He's just a boy. Let him go. Grant held Jonas for another moment, then dropped him. The young man stumbled, straightened his eyes blazing with humiliation. You'll regret this, he said to Ruth. When Kent comes tonight, when they drag you away, remember I tried to save you. He strode to the bunkhouse. Within minutes he was riding away, but not toward town. He headed north toward Warren Kent's ranch. He'll tell Kent everything, Ruth said quietly. Let him. Grant was still watching Jonas disappear into the distance. I'm tired of waiting for the hammer to fall. Ruth touched his arm. Grant, maybe I should. If you say leave, I'll lose my mind. He turned to face her, and Ruth saw something in his eyes that made her heart race. I know we barely know each other. I know this is insane, but Ruth, you and Hope are the first good things to happen to me since Anna died. I won't let them take you. Even if it costs you everything. Everything already cost me everything. This time I'm choosing what to lose. That afternoon they prepared. Grant cleaned every weapon in the house. Ruth helped by learning to load the Derringer, the shotgun, the Winchester. They moved furniture to create defensive positions, stored water and medical supplies. Peter, the other ranch hand, arrived as the sun was setting. Boss riders coming, maybe a dozen. Grant nodded grimly. You don't have to stay, Peter. This isn't your fight. Peter, a grizzled man in his 50s, spat tobacco juice. Been working for you 8 years, Mr. McCoy. Seen you at your best and worst. I'll stand. They didn't have long to wait. The riders arrived as full dark fell, Warren Kent leading Sheriff Briggs reluctantly beside him, Reverend Silas clutching a Bible like a weapon. The others were hired men, faces Ruth didn't recognize. McCoy, Kent's voice rang out. Send out the woman. This doesn't have to get ugly. Grant stepped onto the porch, rifle prominent. Peter flanked him with a shotgun. Gentlemen, you're trespassing. Turn around. We have legal authority, Sheriff Briggs called out, though he sounded uncomfortable. The town council voted. The woman poses a clear danger to public welfare. Based on what evidence? Based on testimony from Jonas Miller, Kent said smugly. He's told us about her rituals, her witchcraft, how she's enchanted you. Ruth almost laughed. Jonas's lies meant to protect her were now being used against her. Grant did laugh, harsh and bitter. Jonas Miller is a lovesick boy who propositioned Mrs. Winslow this morning and was rejected. Hardly a reliable witness. Nevertheless, Silas interjected, the testimony stands. Send her out or we'll come in. Try it. The standoff stretched taut. Ruth watched from inside, Hope sleeping in her arms despite the chaos. She could end this. Walk outside, surrender, save Grant from the coming violence. But then she remembered Thomas, how she'd always surrendered to keep peace, how it had slowly killed her spirit. No more. She laid Hope in her cradle, picked up the Derringer, and walked onto the porch. I'm not going anywhere, she announced, her voice carrying clearly. You want me? Come and take me. Warren Kent smiled. Brave words for a woman outnumbered 12-3. 4, Martha Doyle emerged from the shadows beside the cabin, a shotgun in her weathered hands. Evening, Warren. Tom, Reverend. Martha, what are you doing here? Sheriff Briggs sounded shocked. Protecting an innocent woman from a mob. The elderly woman's voice was steady. Shame on all of you, especially you, Silas. The Reverend shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Doyle, you don't understand the situation. I understand plenty. I understand that Anna McCoy came to me 2 years ago desperate and alone. Told me things, terrible things. Martha's gaze was fixed on Silas, about a certain man of God who couldn't keep his hands to himself. The silence was deafening. Grant went rigid beside Ruth. Silas's face drained of color. You're speaking blasphemy. I'm speaking truth. Anna was my friend. She told me about the baby Silas. Your baby. The words hung in the air like a lit fuse. Warren Kent's men shifted nervously, unsure what they'd walked into. Lies, Silas said, but his voice shook. The woman is clearly senile. I have letters. Martha's voice was calm. Anna gave them to me for safekeeping. Letters describing your visits when Grant was at the mill. Your promises. Your threats when she wanted to end things. Grant made a sound pain rage Ruth couldn't tell. She grabbed his arm, anchoring him. Warren Kent, ever the opportunist, tried to salvage the situation. Regardless of past indiscretions, we're here about the Winslow woman, who's under my protection, Martha interrupted. Mine and the McCoys. And if you don't turn around right now, those letters will go to the bishop tomorrow. Silas crumbled. Please, no. My position, my family. Your family. Grant's voice was ice. What about mine? What about my wife who killed herself because of what you did? Gasps from the assembled men. Even Warren Kent looked shocked. That's not... She died in childbirth, Silas stammered. She killed herself. I found the note. The midwife helped cover it up. Grant raised his rifle. Give me one reason why I shouldn't put a bullet in you right now. Grant, no. Ruth's voice was firm. He's not worth it. Anna wouldn't want this. Anna's dead. Yes, and killing him won't bring her back. Ruth stepped in front of Grant, forced him to look at her. But it will take you away from everyone who needs you. Hope needs you. I need you. Grant's eyes searched hers. Slowly, he lowered the rifle. Warren Kent, seeing his leverage evaporating, made one last play. This changes nothing. The woman is still... A shot rang out. Warren's hat flew off his head. Everyone turned to see Jonas Miller on horseback at the edge of the property, a smoking pistol in his hand. Next one goes between your eyes, Kent, the young man called out. You lied to me, said you just wanted her gone. But I heard you talking to your men. You plan to hurt her. Use her, sell her to those men from the mining camps. Ruth's blood went cold. Warren Kent's business apparently included human trafficking. Sheriff Briggs finally found his spine. Warren, is this true? The boy's delusional. I have witnesses, Jonas said. Your own men, Sheriff. They'll talk if you pressure them. The hired men were already backing away, wanting no part of kidnapping and trafficking charges. Kent looked around and saw his support evaporating. His face twisted with rage. This isn't over, McCoy. That timber is mine by rights. Your rights end where my property begins, Grant said. Leave, now, don't come back. One by one, the riders turned and left. Silas slunk away like a beaten dog. Sheriff Briggs tipped his hat to Martha, an apology in the gesture. Warren Kent was the last to go, his eyes promising retribution. Jonas remained still, mounted, still armed. I'm sorry, he called out to Ruth, for everything. I thought I could save you, but you don't need saving, do you? No, Ruth said gently, but thank you for trying. Jonas nodded, looked at Grant. Take care of her. She deserves better than both of us. He rode away into the darkness. Martha lowered her shotgun with a sigh. Well, that was more excitement than these old bones have had in years. Martha, Grant said slowly, is it true about the letters? The old woman's eyes were sad. Yes, Anna gave them to me the day before she died, made me promise to use them only if necessary. She pulled an oilcloth package from her coat. They're yours by rights. Grant took the package with shaking hands but didn't open it. Read them later, Martha advised. When you're ready, when you can forgive. I don't know if I can. Not Silas, Anna, and yourself. Martha patted his arm, then turned to Ruth. You've got a good man here, child. Damaged, but good. Don't let him push you away when the guilt gets bad. I won't, Martha smiled. I believe you won't. After Martha left, they stood on the porch in silence. The night was cold and clear, stars brilliant in the Wyoming sky. I should have known, Grant said finally. Should have seen the signs. You were building a life for her. You thought you had time. Time, he laughed bitterly. Anna begged for my time. I gave her everything but that. Ruth took his hand. Then give it now, to hope, to building something new. Grant looked at their joined hands. To you, if you want. He turned her hand over, traced the calluses, the small scars from years of hard work. Ruth, I'm broken. I may never be whole. I'll have bad days where Anna's ghost is more real than you. I'll pull away, shut down, fail you in 100 small ways. I'm broken too, Ruth said. I'll have days where I see Thomas in every shadow, where I'm convinced I'm cursed that I'll destroy everything I touch. We're both walking wounded, Grant. Then what are we doing? Ruth squeezed his hand, choosing to walk wounded together. Grant pulled her into an embrace, careful, tentative. Ruth felt him shake, exhaustion, relief, something deeper. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For not letting me kill him, for standing in front of my gun. That's what partners do. Grant pulled back to look at her. In the starlight, his eyes were silver, ghostly beautiful. Is that what we are, partners? Before Ruth could answer, a cry came from inside. Hope was awake, frightened by the earlier shouting. They went to her together. Grant picked her up while Ruth warmed milk. They sat by the fire, passing Hope between them as she drank, settled, fell back asleep. She feels safe with you, Ruth observed, watching Grant rock Hope gently. She's the only one who should. I've failed everyone else. You didn't fail me tonight. The night's not over. As if his words were prophetic, a heard it crackling, roaring, the sound of hell itself. They rushed to the window. The barn was on fire. The horses... Grant thrust Hope into Ruth's arms and ran. Grant, no. But he was already gone. Ruth watched in horror as he disappeared into the inferno. She could hear the horses screaming, the cattle bellowing. Peter emerged from the bunkhouse, ran to help. Minutes stretched like hours. Then Grant staggered out, leading 2 horses, his shirt smoking. Peter followed with another. They went back. Please, Ruth whispered to any god who might be listening, please don't take him too. They emerged again with the last horse just as the barn roof collapsed. Grant fell to his knees, coughing, retching. Ruth ran to him. Hope clutched against her chest. I'm fine, he gasped, but his hands were burned, his face soot blackened. You're an idiot. Ruth was crying, couldn't stop. A complete idiot. The animals had to... I don't care about the animals. Grant looked up at her, surprised. You don't... No, you fool. I care about you. Peter cleared his throat. Boss, we got bigger problems. They looked where he pointed. A note was nailed to the porch post, the paper singed but readable. This is the beginning. The widow leaves or everything burns. You have 2 days. W.K. Grant struggled to his feet, swaying. Peter, ride it to town. Get the sheriff. Sheriff won't do nothing, boss. Not against Kent. Then get Martha. Get everyone who stood with us. Tell them Warren Kent just declared war. Peter nodded, mounted one of the saved horses, and rode off. Ruth helped Grant inside, made him sit while she tended his burns. They were superficial, thank God, but painful. His hands shook as she wrapped them. He won't stop, Grant said quietly. Kent, he'll burn everything rather than let me win. Then we stop him first. Help you. Ruth thought of the letters Martha had left still unopened on the table. We use the truth, all of it. That night, while Grant slept fitfully, Ruth read Anna's letters. They painted a picture of a desperately lonely woman who'd made a terrible choice. But one letter, the last, made Ruth gasp. Silas, I'm ending this. I'm ending everything. But before I go, you should know Warren Kent knows about us. He's threatened to expose you unless you help him destroy Grant after I'm gone. He wants the lumber contracts, the land, everything. I'm sorry for the mess I'm leaving, but I'm sorrier for the mess that's coming. Tell Grant I loved him. In my way, I always did. Anna Warren Kent had orchestrated everything. He'd driven Anna to despair, planned to use her death against Grant, had been playing a long game for 2 years. Ruth woke. Grant showed him the letter. He read it twice, his face cycling through emotions, rage, grief, understanding. He killed her, Grant said finally. Not with his hands, but he killed her. And now he's trying to kill us. Grant stood winced at the pain in his hands. Not trying. He is killing us piece by piece unless what? Grant's smile was grim. Unless we kill him first, not literally, but there are other ways to destroy a man like Warren Kent. What do you have in mind? Kent's bank holds mortgages on half the county, but banks run on trust. What happens when that trust disappears? Ruth began to understand. A run on the bank. Exactly, and I know just how to trigger it. They worked through the night planning, strategizing. As dawn broke, they had their battle plan. But first, Grant did something unexpected. He got down on one knee. Ruth Winslow, I know this is insane. I know we've known each other less than 2 weeks. But I also know that you're the bravest, strongest, most incredible woman I've ever met. I know that hope needs a father, and I need a reason to keep fighting. I know that I'm falling in love with you. Ruth's heart stopped. Grant, marry me, not for propriety, not for protection. Marry me because when I thought the barn might collapse on me, the only thing I could think about was that I hadn't told you how I feel. Grant, you're exhausted, traumatized. I'm clear-headed for the first time in 2 years. He pulled off his wedding ring, Anna's ring, and set it aside. I loved Anna, but she's gone. You're here. You're alive. You're real. And I choose you. Ruth looked at this man, scarred, burned, covered in soot, kneeling on the floor of a cabin that might be ashes by tomorrow. She thought of Thomas, of the safe, predictable life they'd had. Then she thought of Grant, of the dangerous, uncertain, absolutely vital life he was offering. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes, I'll marry you. Grant stood, pulled her into a kiss that tasted of smoke and hope and new beginnings. Hope woke up, clapping her hands and laughing. But first, Ruth said against his lips, we destroy Warren Kent. Grant's grin was wolfish. Mrs. Soon-to-be McCoy, I like the way you think. The news of Grant McCoy's engagement to Ruth Winslow spread through Silver Ridge like wildfire. If wildfire could carry judgment and gossip along with heat, Martha Doyle, bless her, was the one spreading it along with something else, carefully crafted rumors about Warren Kent's bank. Heard from my cousin in Denver, Martha told anyone who'd listen at the general store. Banks are failing left and right, people losing everything. Makes a body wonder if their money's safe anywhere. Meanwhile, Grant rode to his lumber mill, his burned hands wrapped but functional. His foreman, Jake Harrison, greeted him with concern. Boss heard about the fire. The men are talking. Let them talk, but first I need you to do something. Grant pulled out a bank draft. Cash this at Kent's bank, all of it, $20,000. Jake's eyes widened. That's near everything you got deposited there. Exactly, and make sure people see you do it. Make sure they hear you say that any bank that supports burning a man's property isn't safe for honest money. Kent will know what you're doing. I'm counting on it. By noon, there was a line at the bank. By 3 o'clock, Warren Kent had to close the doors to stop the run. By evening, he was at Grant's cabin, alone, desperate and dangerous. Ruth saw him coming, warned Grant. They met him on the porch, united. You've destroyed me, Kent said without preamble. His usually immaculate appearance was disheveled, his eyes wild. 30 years building that bank, and you've destroyed it in a day. You destroyed yourself when you burned my barn, Grant replied calmly. Prove it was me. I don't need to. The damage is done. Your bank is finished, Warren. Leave town. Start over somewhere else. Kent laughed an ugly sound. Leave and let you win. Let you have everything, the mill, the land, the woman. His eyes fixed on Ruth with disturbing intensity. She should have been mine, you know. I was never property to be claimed, Ruth said firmly. Not you. Anna. Kent's smile was twisted. She came to me first before Silas, begged me to take her away. But I was married, then had reputation to consider. So I sent her to Silas, thinking a little scandal might weaken Grant's position. Grant went very still. You orchestrated it all. Every bit. Anna's affair, her despair, even helped her plan her suicide, made it look noble, romantic. A woman dying in childbirth, how tragic. Kent stepped closer. But then you had to go and find another woman, had to start rebuilding. So yes, I burned your barn, and I'll burn everything else you love unless the gunshot was shocking in its suddenness. Kent stumbled, looking down at the spreading red stain on his chest. Behind him, Jonas Miller sat on horseback rifle smoking. No, Ruth ran forward, caught Kent as he fell. His blood was warm on her hands, his breath rattling. Should have taken the money, Kent gasped. Should have left when... His eyes fixed on something beyond Ruth's shoulder. Anna. He died with his murdered victim's name on his lips. Jonas dismounted slowly. He was reaching for a gun, he said quietly. I saw it. Grant kicked Kent's coat open. There was indeed a derringer there, half drawn. You saved us, Ruth said, still kneeling by Kent's body. No. Jonas's young face was old suddenly. I finished what I started. Kent only knew about you because of me. This is my fault. All of it. Jonas. I'm turning myself in. He looked at Sheriff Briggs riding up, having heard the shot. Sheriff, I just killed Warren Kent. He was drawing on Mr. McCoy. Tom Briggs looked at the scene, Kent dead, the derringer, visible Grant, and Ruth's shocked faces. Self-defense, then? No, Jonas said firmly. Murder. I wanted him dead for what he planned to do to Mrs. Winslow. I'd do it again. Boy, don't be a fool. I'm done being a fool, or a boy. Jonas handed over his rifle. I'll hang if need be. At least she's safe. Sheriff Briggs looked deeply uncomfortable. Grant, Ruth, what did you see? Grant stepped forward. We saw a young man protect innocent people from a dangerous criminal. We saw self-defense. That's not what happened, Jonas protested. That's exactly what happened, Ruth said firmly, standing. Kent's blood was still on her hands. Warren Kent destroyed Anna McCoy, burned our barn, and was about to shoot Grant. You saved us, Jonas. Let us save you. The sheriff sighed. Warren Kent was a powerful man, but not a liked one. Won't be many tears shed. Boy, you willing to leave town, start fresh somewhere far from here. Jonas looked at Ruth one last time, his love for her clear in his eyes. Yes, I'll go tonight. Then go. Don't come back. Jonas mounted his horse, turned to Grant. I was wrong about you. You're a good man. Take care of them. I will. Jonas rode away into the sunset, young, broken, but free. They never saw him again, though years later Ruth would receive a letter from California. A single line, I learned to be happy, thank you. But that was later. Now they had a body to bury and a town to face. The funeral of Warren Kent was sparsely attended. His wife, a mousy woman who'd lived in his shadow, seemed more relieved than grieved. She left for her sisters in Boston the next day, never to return. Reverend Silas performed the service, his own fall from grace, making him subdued, humble. After the burial, he approached Grant and Ruth. I'm leaving it, he said simply, resigning my position going east. But first I need to say this, I'm sorry. For Anna, for everything. She came to me for comfort, and I took advantage. I've been living with that guilt, projecting it onto others. He looked at Ruth. Especially you. You didn't deserve my judgment. Ruth studied his face, saw genuine remorse. I forgive you. I don't, Grant said flatly. I never will, but I won't stop you from leaving. Just go. Silas nodded, accepting the condemnation. As he walked away, he turned back once. Grant, she loved you, Anna. Even at the end, she told me the baby wasn't mine. She lied about that. She was just so desperate for you to hate her to let her go. Grant's face contorted. What? The baby was yours. She knew you'd never forgive yourself if you knew the truth. So she lied, made me complicit in the lie. She thought hatred would be easier for you than grief. Silas left them standing in the cemetery, reeling from this final revelation. The baby was mine, Grant said numbly. My child died with her, and I never knew. Ruth held him as he broke sobbing into her shoulder among the headstones. She held him until he had no tears left, until the sun began to set, until he could breathe again. We should go home, she said gently. Home. Grant straightened, wiped his face. Yes, we should go home and plan our wedding. 3 days later, on a crisp December morning, Grant McCoy married Ruth Winslow in the same church where Anna's funeral had been held. Martha Doyle stood as witness, holding hope. Peter was Grant's best man. The attendance was small but sincere, those who'd learned to see past gossip to truth. The new minister, young and idealistic, performed the ceremony with genuine joy. "Do you, Grant, take Ruth to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do," Grant said, his voice strong and clear. "Do you, Ruth, take Grant to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Ruth looked at this man who'd saved her at a crossroads, who'd stood against a town for her, who'd chosen her over everything safe and known. "I do." "Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife." Grant kissed her, and it was a promise of protection. Partnership, passion held in check, but burning beneath. Hope squealed and clapped, making everyone laugh. As they walked out of the church, Ruth noticed fresh flowers on Anna's grave. Grant's doing, she realized. He'd honored his first wife even as he married his second. "No jealousy?" Grant asked, seeing where she looked. "No, she brought you to me. In a way, I owe her everything." That night, their wedding night, was gentle and profound. Two damaged people coming together, finding wholeness in their brokenness. Grant traced the scars on Ruth's hands from years of hard work. Ruth kissed the burns on his palms from saving the horses. "We're quite a pair," Grant murmured against her skin. "The perfect pair," Ruth corrected, "both survivors." They made love slowly, carefully, like they had all the time in the world. And perhaps they did. The threats were gone, the town was accepting them, and winter was settling into peaceful routine. But life had one more twist to deliver. A month after the wedding, Ruth knew. The nausea, the fatigue, the tender breasts, all familiar signs. She was pregnant, but the timing was wrong. This child had been conceived before the wedding, during those intense days of danger and desire. She told Grant at dinner, nervous about his reaction. He set down his fork, stared at her. "A baby." "Yes, but Grant, the timing people will know. Let them know." He came around the table, knelt beside her chair. "Let them count backwards and whisper, 'I don't care. We're having a baby. We're having a baby.'" Grant laughed, really laughed, for the first time since she'd known him. He picked her up, spun her around while Hope watched from her high chair, giggling at the adult's silliness. "We're having a baby." Spring came early that year. The snow melted, revealing green shoots of possibility. Grant rebuilt the barn with help from the community. The same people who'd once threatened to drive Ruth away now raised walls and shared meals. Ruth's pregnancy progressed smoothly. Grant was attentive but not smothering, having learned from his mistakes with Anna. He included Ruth in business decisions, valued her input, made her a true partner. One evening in May, as Ruth sat in the rocking chair Grant had made for her, she felt the baby move for the first time. "Grant," he was there immediately. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Give me your hand." She placed it on her swelling belly. "Wait." The flutter came again, stronger. Grant's eyes widened. "Is that's your child?" Grant dropped to his knees, pressed his ear to her belly. "Hello, little one. I'm your papa, and I promise I'll be here. Always." Ruth ran her fingers through his hair, felt tears slip down her cheeks. Happy tears, healing tears. Martha Doyle visited weekly, teaching Ruth about pregnancy, birth, baby care. "You're carrying high," she observed. "Likely a boy." "Grant wants a girl, says boys cause too much trouble." Martha laughed. He'd know, having been one. As summer peaked, Ruth went into labor. It was long but uncomplicated. Grant stayed with her against tradition, but very much in character. He held her hand, whispered encouragement, never once left her side. "I'm here," he kept saying. "I'm here, I'm here, I'm here." When their son was born, healthy, loud, perfect, Grant wept openly. "What should we name him?" Ruth asked, exhausted but euphoric. "Thomas," Grant said without hesitation. "Thomas Jonas McCoy." Ruth looked at him in surprise. "After my first husband, and the boy who saved us. After men who shaped us even in their imperfection." Grant kissed her forehead. "Is that all right?" "It's perfect." Hope, now walking and talking in full sentences, was fascinated by her baby brother. "Mine," she declared, trying to climb into the birthing bed. "Yes," Grant said, lifting her carefully. "Yours, your brother. Papa's baby. Papa's baby, and Mama's, and yours." Hope considered this, then kissed the baby's head with a wet smack. "Good baby." That night, as Ruth nursed little Thomas while Grant held Hope, reading her a story, Ruth thought about the crossroads where this had all started. 4 roads that led to nothing until they led to everything. What are you thinking? Grant asked, seeing her contemplative expression. About roads, about choices, about how the worst moment of my life led to the best. Being driven out of town. No, choosing to trust the stranger who found me dying in the snow. Grant smiled, that real warm smile that had become more frequent. Best choice I ever made, too. Stopping for you. Why did you really... Grant was quiet for a moment. You reminded me of Anna at first, alone, desperate. But then you spoke, and you were nothing like her. You were fierce even while dying. And I thought, this woman deserves to live. And then I realized so did I. A year passed, then two. The town fully embraced them. Grant's business thrived. Ruth became known for her healing herbs, her midwifery skills learned from Martha. They were happy, but the past had one more ghost to release. Hope was 3, Thomas 2 when the letter came. Ruth recognized the handwriting, her sister Mary, who'd refused to help when Thomas died, who'd turned her away pregnant and desperate. Ruth, I don't know if this will reach you. I heard rumors you'd settled in Wyoming, married again. I need you to know I was wrong. After you left, I learned the truth about Thomas. He had another family in the mining camp, another wife, 2 children. You weren't cursed, you were betrayed. I'm dying now, consumption, the doctor says. I needed you to know the truth before I go. You deserve better than Thomas. You deserve better than all of us. I hope you found happiness. I hope you can forgive. Mary Ruth read the letter 3 times, then handed it to Grant. Thomas was a bigamist, he said slowly. The accident was probably him being distracted by his double life, not by me. Ruth felt oddly calm. All that guilt, all that blame for a man who was never really mine. How do you feel? Ruth considered. Free. Finally, completely free. She burned the letter that night, watched the last of her guilt turn to ash and float away. 5 years after that Crossroads meeting, they stood there again. Grant had suggested the ride mysterious about his intentions. The Crossroads looked different in summer green, alive, full of possibility rather than death. This is where I found you, Grant said, dismounting. This is where you saved me. No, Grant helped her down, pulled her close. This is where we saved each other. Hope, now 8, and Thomas 5, played in the grass chasing butterflies. A third child, Anna, named for the woman who'd brought them together through tragedy, slept in Ruth's arms. Do you ever think about the roads not taken? Ruth asked. Every day, and every day I'm grateful we took this one. They stood at the crossroads where 4 roads led to nothing, except they hadn't led to nothing. They'd led to everything: love, family, redemption, life. I love you, Ruth McCoy, Grant said. I love you too, Grant McCoy. Forever. Forever. Hope ran up, grabbing their legs. Mama, Papa, look what we found. It was a bird's nest carefully cupped in her small hands, 3 blue eggs nestled inside. It's beautiful, Ruth said, but we should put it back where you found it. The mama bird will be looking for it. Like you looked it for us, Hope asked innocently. Ruth and Grant exchanged glances over her head. Yes, Grant said, exactly like that. They walked back together, a family forged from loss, strengthened by trials, united by choice. The crossroads fell behind them, but its lesson remains: sometimes the road to nothing leads to everything, if you're brave enough to follow it. That night, as they tucked the children into bed, Hope asked for a story. Tell us about the widow and the cowboy, she said, as she did most nights. Grant sat on one bed, Ruth on the other, baby Anna sleeping between them. Once upon a time, Grant began, a cowboy found a widow at a crossroads. She was dying, Hope supplied helpfully. But she was also beginning, Ruth added. She just didn't know it yet. And the cowboy, Thomas asked, though he knew the answer. The cowboy was lost, Grant said. But when he saved the widow, he found himself. All 3 children chorused. That's right, Ruth said. He found himself, and they found each other, and they found home, the children shouted. Home, Grant agreed, catching Ruth's eye. They found home. Later, after the children slept, Grant and Ruth sat on the porch they'd expanded over the years. The night was warm, full of cricket songs and starshine. No regrets, Grant asked, as he did sometimes. No regrets, Ruth confirmed, as she always did, even though I'm difficult, moody, still haunted sometimes. Even though I'm stubborn, independent, and still have nightmares. Especially though. They rocked in comfortable silence, hands linked between their chairs. Grant, Ma, thank you. For what? For stopping that day, for seeing me, for choosing to save me. Grant brought her hand to his lips. Ruth, yes, Etha, thank you. For what? For being worth saving, for saving me right back, for choosing to stay. Always, Ruth said. Always, Grant echoed. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled lonely seeking. But here on this porch, two people who'd once been lost had found everything they needed. The crossroads had led them home. And in the morning when Hope would wake early and crawl into their bed, when Thomas would demand pancakes in his imperious 5-year-old way, when baby Anna would need feeding, when the ranch hands would arrive for instructions, when Martha would stop by with gossip and wisdom, when life would resume its beautiful chaos, they would be ready. They would be whole. They would be home. Together. Forever. At the crossroads, where 4 roads led to everything, 20 years later. Hope McCoy stood at the same crossroads, her own daughter in her arms. She'd married Jonas Miller's nephew. Funny how life circled back and was returning from visiting her parents. Grant's hair was silver now, Ruth's lined with white, but they still looked at each other like newlyweds discovering love. They'd weathered more storms, Thomas's wild teenage years, Anna's elopement with a traveling preacher, the fire that took the original cabin, the flood that nearly destroyed the mill. But they'd weathered it all together. Tell me again, Hope's daughter pleaded. Tell me about the crossroads. Hope smiled her mother's smile, her father's eyes. Once upon a time, a dying widow met a grieving cowboy where 4 roads led to nothing. But it wasn't nothing, was it, Mama? No, sweetheart. It was the beginning of everything. The wind whispered through the grass, carrying echoes of old pain transformed to rain, old loss transformed to love. The crossroads remained waiting for the next lost soul to find their way home, waiting to transform nothing into everything. Again.